There are those who speak and those who listen. But every so often, someone shows up who does both with uncommon purpose and an open notebook in hand. Nicole Banks is a power connector, a woman whose network doesn't just span industries, it sparks movements. For more than 2 decades, she's solved problems others run from, built what others said couldn't be done, and highlighted the wisdom of giants, one page at a time. This is Nicole's Business Notebook, a curated circle of brilliance, a behind-the-scenes pass to the strategies, stories, and secrets shared by the experts she calls friends. It's not just a show, it's a blueprint for those bold enough to build. So settle in, because the notebook is open.
Hi, it's Nicole Banks with Nicole's Business Notebook. We are here for another episode where we're bringing together my business friends and partners so that we can help us all learn the wisdom to do better business together. This week I have Dino Klein with us, and we are excited to talk about sales and the Dino Show and all the things he has going on. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I appreciate the invite. I'm really looking forward to this. Hopefully we'll have some pearls of wisdom, but no promises.
Indeed. Awesome. So for those that don't know, obviously you are the consummate salesperson. How did your sales career start?
By accident. So truth be told, we're going to go back a few years, and I'm not going to say what year. Well, I was right before my senior year of college. Of course, I was putting myself through college by bartending, waiting tables, and what have you. And my old car actually locked up on the turnpike.
Oh, no.
So it was the biggest blessing in disguise. So during that process, my father said, listen, I'll co-sign for a car loan, but I want you to go out and get a real job. So in the process of looking for a car and looking for employment, I took a job that I didn't want, selling actually in-home sales, old school, yes.
Yep.
And the only reason I took it was because they gave me a guarantee. If I did 50 presentations, I would make no less than $1,050 if I had 0 sales. Because my father always said, you should be in sales, you should be in sales. I'm like, back. I was studying accounting. I was going to go on and get my law degree, and I should have listened to my father. A couple of times I listened to my father. Maybe we'll get into that. And so I took a job, and the more I applied myself, the more opportunities came about. I decided to take off, and I had less than a year to go for my degree, to take a semester off and see what would happen. And I moved up with the company, become the marketing director with the company. We set records, and we moved from Toledo, Ohio, which, by the way, is not even a nice place to visit, to Indianapolis, Indiana. Just the management team went down there. I opened my first outlet September of that year. That was, it was 92. So I've been with the company less than just over a year, after I helped build up the inside office, as I promised, as part of the relocation process. Then I opened up a few more locations. Then I hired my father into the company, and we set all kinds of records. I mean, we had, without being self-serving, we had 12 locations and about 150 sales reps at the end of the day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but there was a lot of lessons that I learned during that process. The first thing I figured out was that because it was strictly 1099, it was strictly commission only, past that guarantee, that the owner only made money if I made money.
Right.
So as opposed to having a better way, I listened to what he said. Matter of fact, after the advanced training meetings every day, I went back in his office. I said, I think I have it, but what if they do this, or what if they say this, or that kind of thing? Or if I didn't feel comfortable doing a part of the presentation, I would take him and say, look, I just don't feel comfortable. We would talk through it, and then later I would feel comfortable. But the biggest thing is as Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. And the young man that I was working for is now, he's got dual citizenships in Dubai, setting up smart cities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the biggest thing is to have a mentor, have somebody that you will follow, but not blindly follow like I did, but understand that their success was determined on my success. So because of my later success, it opened up all kinds of things for him.
I love that. So in-home sales, I think is, sales by fire and tribulation and slam doors. So what tips did you learn in that journey that you think entrepreneurs could benefit from?
One is you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So ask when you're on the presentation, ask a lot of questions, because here's the biggest thing is you need to buy my product because of this, because of this, because of that doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is their interest, their desires, or as in sales, they talk about pain points, because people work harder to move away from pain than they do towards pleasure.
Correct.
Right? Like a friend of mine who, until he had his 3rd heart attack, did he decide to quit smoking.
Oh, wow.
So, and the biggest thing is to, just become friends, and that has to be genuine. Like I genuinely like people, I enjoy people. So, really go there, get interested in them. Like, if, for example, in in-home sales, look around the room. Wow, I see you like trees. I see that you like this. Oh, you find pictures. Who's this? Or what have you. If they have things in their, depending where your sale's at, look around. If they have pictures or other things up, or, a dead animal on the wall like a deer, you like hunting? What have you. Look around, evaluate, and then find out about them. And then really also be very careful not to impose your opinions. Give you an example of that is I had a guy who was, Desert Storm guy, all-state football and all that. Yeah. And I forget the name of the quarterback, but all of a sudden they talked about football, and they mentioned this guy's name. Oh, I think he's a blowhard. I think he's overrated and this and this. Well, really, that's just his persona on TV. He's a really nice guy. Matter of fact, at last week's family reunion, needless to say, he didn't get any referrals, didn't get any leads, didn't get anything else from that, and everything was going well up to that point.
Yeah, I love that. I think the context and the listening, for me, where I've been successful in sales is that creative problem solving, figuring out exactly what the issue is and fixing it. And, coming at it from that instead of like the 80s car guy, kind of how I was taught. Oh. Yeah. That's its own story.
Pushy. Yeah. That's another thing. You think about the 80s car guy, it's pushy. Your biggest sales is walking away from the table. You're like, I'm not kidding. Oh, I'm sorry, this really didn't work out for you. Start packing up. Whoa, wait. They're looking for just initial justification. And if you think that, 1 or 2 things are going to get the order, no, minimum 5. So, but don't push, just back off and find out, I'm really sorry. I really, thought that you wanted to go this route, or you wanted this or this or this. I must have missed it. I really wish there was something more I could do. You back off, and then they're going to go, well, really what it is this.
Exactly.
And that you have to find out what the real reason, and like I said, find out what their reasons for purchasing are, whatever it is that you're promoting or selling, and then help them.
Right.
But also be willing to walk away. Be willing to walk away. Not getting into politics, but Trump, the art of the deal. How many deals has he done by saying, no, forget it, I'm done. I'm walking away.
Out.
I'm walking away. Whether you like the orange man or not,
right.
he's a master at the deal.
Yep. No.
And his biggest key is walking away.
I love that. So, for entrepreneurs who may be the other side of things and not confident in sales, objections are the scariest thing ever. How would you tell an entrepreneur to get over it and to be better about accepting objections and seeing them as opportunities?
Well, a couple of things. It's like, I'm Dino, right? So I've never heard no. I've heard and you've heard of this, right? The N-O, right?
Yep.
I hear K-N-O-W. Dino, I don't know enough to make a decision. Please share more with me, because people just want justification. What is sales? Sales is an emotional purchase backed by logical reasons. So getting the emotions going, whatever it is, in other words, moving towards pain, and then you move towards solutions. So objections, most of them are false. They're lying to you. It doesn't mean they're hateful, deceitful, or not a good person.
Yeah.
But you have to find out what the real reason is. What is the real reason? Because most objections are false. They've got nothing to do with it. How many times people told me that they couldn't afford it, and I'm looking around, and now like today, you think about all the subscription services. People buy what they want, not what they need. When's the last time you got real excited about going out and buying toilet paper?
In the pandemic.
Well, Mr. Clean had that covered.
Right.
That's my other persona, right?
Indeed. That's
But
amazing.
objections. Also, I think the other biggest thing, if we're talking to entrepreneurs today,
Yep.
be careful who you talk to. The people that love you the most are not going to tell you you can't do it. It won't work out. This doesn't work out, because they think that you're subservient or you can't do it. They themselves aren't willing to take that step. So you want to surround yourself with like-minded people like us,
Yep, 1000%.
people that are, and that doesn't mean you have to divorce your family. But if you're around people that have that entrepreneurial mindset, that it's like Henry Ford was famous for saying, whether you think you can do something or you think you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. You're right. You're 100% right. So you want to be around the people where it's easier to be positive. Matter of fact, when I was building my sales organization, my first hour of training, if not more, was totally mindset. Talking about, hey, did y'all hear that you're not going to make money with this? Okay, well, just let them know you got a contract that I guarantee if you do X presentations, well, I think 12 presentations, you make no less than $450 this week, right? Yep. And just say, give me a chance, let me do it. But be careful, because the more you talk to them, the more out of true love and concern for you, they're going to try to dissuade you. And if I listened to everybody that told me what I couldn't do,
You'd be them. I'm just kidding.
I have, other than 1 month last year, since the summer of '92, I have not been a W-2 employee. Maybe I'm unemployable. I don't know.
No, I love that. So, we're talking about, sales, and you've been selling since '92.
Right.
I would say, resilience is one of the most important sales skills.
Absolutely.
So, how did you learn resilience selling door to door?
Well, part of it, and here's another little trick I'll share with you. It's about numbers. So, for example, let's say I had a sales rep that made $300 a sale. They'd come in my office, and I would look at them. I'd see, car payment on their forehead. Right? And I'd say, okay, let's sit down. Let's look at your bills for the next 2 weeks or for the next month. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, how many orders is it going to take? And let's put a little fudge factor in there, because there might be somebody that, like in direct in-home sales, they have 3 days to cancel.
Right.
You also, most are getting approved on credit. So you got to allow, if you need 6 sales, we better budget in 7, maybe 8, but just to be safe, because you can always spend extra money, but if you don't, if it's not in the account, you can't spend it, 100%. Right? That'll be a decline. And then just back it off. So, for example, you need how many orders to make this? On your conservative closing average, and also always want to be conservative, you need X amount. Okay, so you need how many presentations? Okay, so how many do you have to set up? And then, okay, how many contacts do you need to make on a daily basis? And then focus on the activity. Mm-hmm. For example, when we went out and did canvassing, we'd want them all to get 10 cards. That was working or not working, because there was pressure to get 10 cards, like a pressure to get sales. So we took a piece of paper and drew up 50 boxes. And we put it on their clipboard when they were out canvassing to enter people in a drawing, right? That we could call back and later offer a different gift. And their job was to get 50 results. A result's not the sale. You can't control that.
Right.
People will let you know. And so we looked at 50 results. And they went to the door, not home, not interested, are registered, right? And we went through it. And when we went out for 50, we would get minimum 10, but usually we get 12 to 14. Mm-hmm. And so the same thing with contacts. I can't control whether I can set an appointment with you. Now, I was an easy appointment because I've respected you for a long time. And you said, Dino, will you do a podcast? I said, I'd love to, help share and support in any way. So that was a lay down. because of you. And there's a great example. People want to work with people they know, like, and trust. People will buy from people they know, like, and trust. People will let people in their office, in their home, for people. And now you might not have developed that kind of rapport, when you're initially setting an appointment. But that's the other thing. Say, hey, look, you may or may not be interested in this, but I just want to show it to you. At the end, I'm just looking for your quick opinion. Yep. I want to get some advice, those kinds of things. So don't focus on the result is not the sale. Correct. The result is not the set appointment. The result is making the effort. You can control efforts, not results.
I love that.
And so...
Yeah, I mean, the recent statistic that I read is 50% of sales happen for a salesperson after 5 connections. And so, to go in there, super, oh yeah, we're going to make a sale on the first time, it's going to be great, is idealistic. And I think what we all think about when we're, entering the sales industry. But, it takes that, relationship building component, I think. Really good salespeople are great at building the relationship first and the sales come.
Exactly.
So, you're walking in a room, you're meeting a new prospect. You did mention about, context and, kind of what's around them and that whole thing. But when it comes to the actual person, what other sort of context clues or things do you look for to help you to increase that rapport?
Well, okay. Developing rapport, most people think is like, oh, you were back in Sylvania, Ohio? Oh, my God, you remember the Mud Hens? No, no. The primary point of it is tonality, then also posture. I mean, look how we're sitting, all right? My hands are kind of like this, and it's not intentional because we have rapport, right? And so the first and most important part is the tonality, then your posture. Like, for example, I'm doing sales presentations, so usually, I'll sit in a chair across from them. There's been times when they're on the floor. Guess where I was? I was on the floor. So, little things like that. So you want to be at an equal level. You don't want to be subservient, and you don't want to be dominant. Nobody wants to be talked down to. And it goes back to also listening. I think the bigger thing, too, is empathy. That's where women have a natural advantage. You naturally are able to listen.
Yep. For the most part.
Men, we
Don't ask my man. I'm just kidding.
we love to talk. We love to hear ourselves. Yep. And what we have to say is really not that important. What's important, what do they want? What do they need? And then really, if you really are able to show empathy by understanding what they want, what they need, what their problems are, and you can help solve that problem, and you have the solution, that's it. Yep. We're not curing cancer. You're not trying. Well, they already found him. I used to say we're not trying to find Osama bin Laden, but they found him.
They found him.
He's kind of a bad memory, but it's what are they looking for? Shut up and listen, and then also little things, little trial things, like, can you see where this would do this and this? Oh, great. And then you reach your hand. Now, what'd you do? At first, you didn't want to reach your hand out, but you did. You reached your hand out. Or little things like, I remember I took my fiance, later wife, wonderful woman, Betty. We have 2 wonderful children, but we were on a presentation, and they said, would you like something to drink? She said, no, thank you. I looked at her, and there were daggers coming out of my eyes, like, you just rejected my future friends. Back in the day, they would offer a Diet Coke. I hate Diet Coke. You know what I say? That would be wonderful. Please. That would be wonderful. And a little trick was to drink a whole bunch of it so you only had the aftertaste once.
Yes.
But otherwise, I rejected them. Would you like this? Yep. That would be wonderful. If they offer you something to eat, whatever it is, oh, that would be wonderful, thank you. You don't have to eat the whole thing, but take that first bite, whatever. Allow that, and then a lot of trial closes, and it's like, would you rather do this, this, and this, and this, and this, which is an obvious no, or would you rather have this? And then, and then if you really want to be fancy, like in old school in-home sales, well, when's the best time to start? And then try to have fun, make jokes. You got to be yourself.
Yes.
Nobody, my presentation, the trial commitments and all those things were exactly the same because it was what I was taught.
Right.
I didn't reinvent the wheel. By the way, going back to that sales story, there was 2 meetings in the office. There was the office meeting and then the parking lot meeting. Back in the day, a lot of people smoked. I know he says to do this, but this one, I know he says to do this. Now later, as we moved to Indiana, and then we started opening up outlets, and then we would have distributor meetings. Here's the other thing, before I forget, watch your numbers. Watch your numbers. In the morning, set up your goals. This is what I'm going to do, X, Y, Z commitments for the day. At the end of the day, look at it. Now, if you didn't achieve it, don't beat yourself up, but redetermine the next day. An example of that was as we were building and we were setting records, every Tuesday morning we'd have stats meetings. And it went through everything, contacts, leads, referrals, new recruits, everything. And then you compared yourself to last week. And then you compare yourself to last month. And then later, last year, the month over month and what have you. And then as I helped a guy named Ozzy Khalil, I helped him build the organization and I moved up. Then I actually qualified to be in his position, but I had to take over another part of the state, give up some outlets and what have you. And we later merged back together again because, the other distributors, it just became arduous for him. It really became arduous, and then they quit looking. Their weekly meetings became bi-weekly meetines. Their weekly main events where we'd have a big sales promotion, bring in new recruits, old recruits, a lot of recognition. That toned down to once a month. And his numbers went down and down and down. So you have to look at your numbers as an individual. And if you're developing a group, look at their numbers. Communicate with them every day. And they need a little bit extra motivation. They're not you.
Right?
They're not you. So you need to help them without being dogmatarian, always being encouraging, always be motivating. The other big one is the why. We've all heard this. Now, my buddy Dean Graziosi does a great job on the why, going 5 levels deep. Well, why is that important? Once you find out what is it that you want, find out what is that important. Like in his particular case, he ended up in tears. He was like, well, I don't want to be moving from place to place and sleeping on the floor and everything else because his parents weren't, well equipped. Now he's sold billions, but, also value your time. When you're first starting out, if you don't have necessary extra money, you want to get to the point to where you look at what is your value. Like I'm not going to say what your value is, but there's definitely 3 figures per hour, right? And so, but maybe when you're starting off, you're at 10 or 25 or 50, whatever it is. Like a good friend of mine who runs a wellness center, I won't mention his name because you might see this, but I've said this to him many times. I said, dude, you're $125 an hour doing a $25 job. There's certain things I won't outsource, like I'm, good in digital marketing and sales copy. There's certain things I won't outsource unless there's somebody better than me, and then I have to pay them for that. But there's so many things that we do on a daily basis. Pay somebody to do it. Get a VA. Go to the Philippines. Get somebody you can pay $2, $5 an hour. If they can do it 80% as good as you can, and they charge a fraction of what your value is, pay them.
Yes.
Pay them. And now going back to the why, you have to have that why. You can do all kinds of little things. We've heard all this stuff. Take a picture of it, put it on your mirror.
Yep.
Every day when I do my hair. This does take longer, as we've talked about, shaving it down every day.
Yep.
People love it when I tell them about one of my entrepreneurial quests, my hair loss control specialist of Indianapolis.
Oh, my gosh.
I still have the low light level laser therapy. I I look better bald.
Yeah.
And, the same thing with a little bit of scruff. The original Mr. Clean was clean shaven, but hopefully we all brush our teeth at least once or twice a day. So have that picture of it. It's going to drive you forward. And always go back to what that why is, because in the morning, if you look at it, it'll get you to make those extra calls. Yep. It'll get you to make those extra appointments. It'll get you to be focused on what your thing is. That's the other one. Eliminate distractions. Yep. That cell phone, like, where's my cell phone? Okay.
Not in your hands.
Put it, I was getting ready to do some consulting work for Spinal Kinetics, and Dr. Brownstein called me. I tried to call you 3 times today. I said, I know. I saw that. But I'm calling you now at about 7 o'clock. And he said, but I was trying to get a hold of you. I said, I understand. I said, if I come aboard with you and I'm going to take the position and try to help you guys out, I said, are you going to want me to be 100% focused on building Spinal Kinetics? He said, well, yeah. And I said, well, okay. The only way I can do that is put my phone in another room. block out times. There's all kinds of things like Pomodoro timer, all kinds of things like that. Work for so long, but then take that break. Work 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, work an hour, there's a variety of different things. The point is to clear your head. Doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a sentence, clear your head, walk away, and then when you come back, you'll have more energy. Yep. You get more done by taking more breaks, qualified breaks. Get off Facebook.
Right.
Get off Instagram, unless you're posting, right? Yeah. Get out of your emails. My old consultant, dear friend of mine, learned some brilliant guy, Scott Manning. He helped build up the chapter system for Glazer Kennedy Inner Circle. So there's many times I had the fortune of sitting across the table with Dan Kennedy and just being like a little doe, right? And not in awe, but just listening and learning. And, Scott said, listen, you can be sending emails to make money, or you can be reading emails to spend money.
I like that. That's a great reminder. So entrepreneurs, normally aren't salespeople. They have their passion. They have whatever they're trying to do, build the widget, serve the widget, however that is. What's one thing that you could tell them to be a better salesperson today?
Oh my God, there's so many. We've opened up so many of those things. I think the biggest thing is mindset and determination. And then the other one, I think we talk about distractions. Mm-hmm. Distractions are dream killers. Yep. Mindset, being around the wrong people, are dream killers. Yep. And then action and holding yourself accountable. Another great coach, Jeff Klubek, Klubek. He's got clues, get a clue. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And he talked about when you're mapping out your day, he said, set up AWS, appointment with self, which means from 1 to 1:30, I'm going to make phone calls and nothing else happens there. From 2 to 4, I'm going to be out prospecting. The other thing is the value of time. All time doesn't have the same value. Right. So during the day when you can talk to a prospect, a customer, a follow-up, you do that. You don't do the minutia of planning and strategizing, and learning is big. Learning is, I'd say that would be another one. Self-learning. There's so many great programs out there. A good buddy of mine with UltraSoap, he said, hell, you can be an expert about anything in 3 to 6 weeks. He said it's all out there. Right. And so you want to constantly be self-learning. You also want to, feed yourself with positivity. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Brendan Burchard, Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, whoever it is, but putting that positive into you. But, a little bit of positivity in the beginning of the day. But if you're going to sit down for an hour of motivation and learning and that type of thing, that's at times when your prospects or your customers are not available, Right. Prospects, prospects and sales during the day, learning, planning, developing, developing your sales funnels at night. Now, there's sometimes if you're just beginning, whatever, you might need to build the funnel. Right. So that's your whole thing. But again, turn off all the distractions, turn off the TV, stay away from news. I mean, and it's easier said than done, but when's the last time you watched some news? And I'm not going to say which side or that side or anything else, but you left and you're like, I'm excited. I remember after watching, back in the original debates of 2016, and I was taking care of my mother who was suffering from cancer, so there was really not. I would watch the debates before, after, mix it up with a whole lot of news. There wasn't enough showers to fix. I was dirty. Right. And I was dirty. More important, I was dirty inside. Yeah. My head was messed up. So if we're around people that are going to say anything other than you can do it, just don't tell them about your dreams. Right. And then also your successes, be careful who you share those with. Be careful who you share with those successes. People will be envious. People, they're, a hater's got a job to do. They're not unemployed.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing for entrepreneurs, who are trying to develop into sales is practice your pitch.
Oh, God, yeah.
Practice it again, and then practice it again, and make sure that you are sort of, light enough on your feet that, I would introduce, what I do to you differently than I would introduce something to a middle-aged woman. If I would, 18-year-old, I would have 3 different pitches talking about 3 different things. And so I think you have to be practiced enough that it comes across as eloquent, informed, confident, and helpful.
Exactly, and you made a great point too. Without saying it, you know your audience. When you talk to a millennial, there's going to be a whole lot different than you talk to a geriatric. When you're talking to men, it's a lot different than women.
Yep.
We process things differently. And the other point that you made, which is so perfect, is perfect your pitch, but don't be careful though. There's a thing called paralysis from analysis, and you have to still go.
Right.
You have to still go, but like I said, when I was in those sales training meetings, I would go into his office afterwards. He was exhausted. I never knew why really training and motivating was exhausting till I did it.
Right?
I feel that. And it's like, what do you mean you're tired? All you did is some talking. Well, no, if you're doing it right, you're tired. You're exhausted. So, but I would go into his office. At night, I would read through the scripts, read through the notes. And the scripts aren't an absolute. You can't be mundane, but the key points in there. Like I would tell people when I was teaching them, I said, now your personality is going to be different than mine, hopefully for your sake.
Right.
But this is a key commitment. Don't add a word, don't change. That's the other one. Oh, I have a better way. I'm going to change it. I'm going to add a word. I'm going to change a word. If I felt that there was something that could be better, I would go to my mentor, my boss, the one that made money when I did, and I'd say, Ozzy, what about this? And every once in a while he'd be like, "Woo, that's a good idea," and he'd go back in for the training room. Like I talked about the sales meetings, we later did that as distributor meetings. I got too focused on the numbers, but they would do the same thing.
Right.
They'd go out in the parking lot and say, I know he says to do this, but I do this. And his numbers, because he was running an inside office, were 6-fold what they were doing.
Right.
And he was sharing with them the secret sauce. Exactly. Emerald was telling you what was in that damn thing.
Bam. I love that. And I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for all of the tidbits for entrepreneurs in sales. And I know that we have a lot of, the same experience in sales. So it was good to
Absolutely.
talk shop
Yeah.
and the sales things. And we'll definitely have you come back on, talk about the Dino Show and some other things we didn't have a chance to get to today. So 2 salespeople talking, what can we say? So again, Dina, thank you so much for being on the show and going through things and the different perspectives to, the same goal, helping entrepreneurs to be better salespeople.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so you reached another episode of Nicole's Business Notebook here this week with Dino Klein, talking all things sales and how entrepreneurs can be better salespeople. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Nicole's Business Notebook. Subscribe and follow for more tips, insider secrets, and hard-earned wisdom so that we can all do better business together. See you next time.